time, I will open the meeting of the Carver Conservation Commission for August 15th, 2018. And our first item is appointments and discussions.
None.
Oh, yes, but then we have business. Okay,
Business.
with the announcement about the site, reminder, the site visit for...
Yeah. Jack Hunter wants to have a site visit at the Paddocks Bog and at Dick Ward's Bogs to look at the vines and things underneath the panels.
August 29th.
And-
August 20, not Jack Hunter, yeah. I think
Because
he's
this is-
doing consulting or something.
Right, and this is an extraordinary request of the board, so because of the commission, so we're
Yeah.
going to get, what, free ice cream or something?
Well, I think he's going to buy us, well, I'm going to ask him if he's going to buy us dinner after. But anyway, it's 6
Good
o'clock.
luck.
On the
Cocktails
29th.
again.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, then we're really going to help.
COC request, none.
So, I don't know, can you all go to that?
I will be in Maine.
Can you go
I can.
What?
to the August 29th?
It's a Wednesday, 6 o'clock.
You'll be interested to go to the Paddock Bog and look at the vines?
Let me look. 2 weeks from tonight.
What could you possibly have going on at 6 p.m.?
I gotta see if
early
I,
day.
Dinner, actually, Saco.
actually, I think there is something going on.
One of the few site visits that JP and I can probably attend.
Friends.
Yep, I'll be there.
Friends who live in Wells and other friends who live in Saco. So we're staying with the friends in Wells and having dinner with the friends in Saco, all of us.
We were up
Well,
there
the fact that it's my anniversary doesn't count, I guess.
Sunday and
Oh,
Bring her
oh,
along.
it is?
Stop.
Bring her along.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
We're going out somewhere special, honey.
We're going to a bog to look at the vines.
Looks a lot lovelier than I remembered.
So it's the 29th.
29th, if you can go.
So let's take a look at the minutes from August 1st.
Bog
Oh, I
meeting,
have one more quick
29th.
thing.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
Do you remember 14 Andrews Point Road?
Yes.
The one where he moved the house back and he got order conditions. He has just asked me to write a letter because he has to go to zoning board because he has to get a variance from the property line setback. So he just wanted to get a quick letter from us saying, you know, that we were in support of the project and stuff like that. So I told him I'd write a letter and just, you know, because we liked what he did. He moved it farther away from the pond, and septic was farther away. So we just wanted that to bring to zoning board to say, you know,
Did they solve their septic issues? You know?
The neighbor?
the neighbor, I don't
That
know
was
what
the
they
one where
did.
the septic spool
Yeah.
was on the line.
Yeah, and the guy didn't want him to fill it.
And they were also going to leave the front area natural.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he didn't want to fill that thing. I don't.
To what? I don't know why he didn't want to fill it either.
Is that Terry?
So we just
Maybe
wanted a
that's where he
letter
puts
so-
his cuttings.
He's got a pipe going into it.
So I just wanted to ask, so I was just
you were
wanted to
in
let you know I
favor
was
of
doing
that.
that. Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Into the neighbors, why not? It's on his property. That's what it is. He's got a pipe going into it. That's
He's using it.
Oh, that guy.
Okay,
All right.
let's get on to the minutes here.
Okay.
August 1st. Okay.
well, you want to do this fast.
These are long, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think we're good. Anybody see anything they don't like?
No, it's good.
Got a few more little things here.
What did we come up with that potential vernal pool?
Oh, in Spring Street?
Yeah.
Well, they weren't going to be anywhere near it, but,
Right.
you know, the neighbor was concerned.
Right. But they're not working anywhere near it.
No.
Yeah.
And if,
It's actually not even a vernal pool yet,
well,
right?
right, yeah,
dry now.
Potential.
It's
Why
not,
don't you run down there and nominate it? What do you say?
We get, well, I asked them if we could get it certified and they didn't want to.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Exactly.
so,
All right.
make a motion to accept the
But
minutes.
aren't they, they'll have to
It's been
come
moved to
before us
accept the
again,
minutes.
right?
We have
Oh,
a
they,
second.
Yes,
when they
I'll-
do the
I'll
buildings
second.
and stuff, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's moved and seconded to accept the minutes as written from August 1st, 2018 meeting. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimous. Okay. The snake stuff. We have a new hearing.
Island dinner.
Cool. That'll be quiet now for after school starts.
It's 7:15 yet?
No, it's a little early.
We don't have a time listed on this.
No,
actually.
we don't, but,
There's no time
well,
on
it says,
it.
no,
It
it says.
says 7:15.
Third line says
Oh,
7:15.
okay.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
7:15.
Yeah,
Gentlemen, we're waiting till 7:15 because that's the announcement of, we don't want any upset neighbors
Straggling and
coming in.
butters.
Couple neighbors here. We could have a problem. We knew we'd get a couple. We knew we'd get a couple neighbors here.
I was one of
See it,
Get it?
Do you don't live there, in that area?
No, that was the one off Center Street.
but even some of the notifications.
I get it.
You heard from Mike Paddock? Are the
Nice to be on
vines
this
growing?
side of the table.
I haven't heard anything from them.
It's a lot
According to
greener
Jack,
than it's
It's
been
a lot greener. I noticed that.
yeah,
too.
according to Jack, they're doing pretty good.
All right, good.
Because remember, wasn't he going to re-irrigate them and
Yeah, that's right.
things like that? Was one reason why
And
they,
he's gonna put some fertilizer on.
yeah.
So, we shall see.
And then Dick Ward's, I think, well, his was on an upland bog, but he's got like a really good vine growth
Yeah,
and stuff.
that's when we were at today.
I was talking to Ian about that, and Ian said probably the reason he has vines growing is because it is an upland bog and it doesn't like need to be irrigated as much or something. I can't remember, but anyway,
It's been a fortune upgrade.
He's got lots of vine on his.
Surface out there.
Also had a lot of rain.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
How far off the road is it?
Yeah, he said the
100
growth,
yards.
I was talking to Dick and Judy
I
about
mean, there's a pole right
4 days
there,
ago.
but they're gonna make them go
The
up
growth
the
on that
road to
is
upgrade
the best
whole
they've seen in
area. They can't
years.
just
Now
upgrade
they
the
put
pole,
the,
they gotta go.
And that's funny, isn't
That's
it?
what they're
Yeah.
gonna make them do.
Now they put the solar array on it.
And how long
How
it
often
takes to get
do
a
you
return on
have finance
investment
committee?
with one of these things.
Huh?
How often do you have finance?
We're doing it once a month now, and most of it's in here.
What night?
Second Thursday now.
Yeah,
And we're gonna be taping, and we're gonna have real minutes,
yeah.
as
The
opposed
guy
to.
who's
Not real minutes and no taping. Are you on TV?
We're taping. Yeah. It's a big agenda coming up.
Planning board on TV? Or is it planning board?
Oh,
on
yeah.
this one? Yeah, they all, everything is. in there.
ZBA, planning board,
Selectmen.
selectmen,
Little, just a little.
conservation.
Board of Health?
Really?
No,
He's got all his
no,
money.
school committee is,
Oh, yeah.
RDA is,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What's
yeah,
that?
RDA is.
I wonder why Board of Health isn't.
I didn't get the gavel out.
Yeah, 3 of them. Get all 3 of them.
It comes in one and goes through the entire park, acres and
Are you
acres.
expecting an unruly crowd?
Yes,
He's on the other side. He's just happens to be 65
Watch out.
feet.
could have some tomahawks here.
But up and dry, I'll bet it's 30 feet above the bog, so it's up and dry, it's underneath the high tension wires and shit.
There's no houses near
No, it's, the houses are about
Those must be butters over
300 feet or
Heart transplant.
so away on the other side of
Maybe
very
building
dense
that heart
woods.
transplant.
Oh, he did? Oh,
Guys.
But the neighbors think so, 'cause they're all here.
5 minutos más.
Somebody breaking into your car. I'm thinking about signing up
train's
for a
here.
ring system,
you.
security. ring.
Oh, yeah, it looks cool.
It does.
There's a party that's looking to
That's the best one
buy
I've seen so
some
far.
bogs down in South
I have
Carver.
that as well.
Pretty
That Mark
inexpensive too.
Weston
Go for it.
and wants to sell.
I didn't
They're
realize
And I think it's
fairly
$500
wet.
getting in my door.
Yeah.
But
I
if it's
think that he
worth
could
it,
possibly
it goes
do
right
it as
there.
long as he
Right there.
replicated the post openings.
Where is that? What, for solar?
Yeah, it's down, it's behind the helicopter,
Place the batteries.
you know, hangar down in South Carver.
Oh,
Yeah, by,
on South Meadow Road?
no, it's off of 58.
Yeah,
So it's
thought
about
about
a week.
Oh,
Yes, yeah.
Well, it's better to get them before they break in rather than after. You know. All the other systems are.
They want to
on
put solar
in
on?
case they break in.
Company wants
Lord.
to buy
Go first.
solar and everything.
huh?
I'm gonna fix that.
Not operate the
Can you
box,
reach it?
just use it for solar. It's in the,
Site. Maybe just give me a chance to get rid of some of those that have,
it's
Yeah, all
well
over
away
there.
from any residential, so on and so
Oh,
forth.
they was easy.
they eat my apples.
Actually,
Off of one insurance.
fell off.
If you go, you know what insurance is? All the way down the back.
Did you put that in the minutes? If you
What are they gonna
record
grow under it?
it. Alan goes to change the clock, whoops, he falls off and breaks his neck.
Put trees I had around my house.
Meeting adjourned.
Planted a nice little box in different layers. So,
Well, I don't see
I
them
add to the
being
ecology and,
Yeah, how long's that been growing?
problem, so
2 years now.
there's a couple of neighbors.
I mean, I didn't buy little ones either.
It's usually why they go so long, is if you have millions of years, you know?
Yeah, I did, thank you. Meant to respond, I just,
I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I wrote him asking about Saturday.
I'm just
So the
giving
last
them
one,
my-
you took the minutes, but I think that was a pretty easy
What
meeting,
would the
wasn't it?
second use be?
Oh, was it a long one? Oh, it was, because there were there any real complicated ones, or was it just a lot? You're right,
That
it
opens
was
up a
like 5 or
can of
6 things
worms.
we never, almost ever do.
I think. Dual use, you know.
That's right, yeah, that's right, because it's your first one, yeah.
Dual use, I want to
That's
open
awesome.
it up.
Was it?
Did they all take
solar,
it?
right?
Every one of them.
Really, because typically summer's
I
not,
stake them right on.
Busy.
I don't know. Take care of them.
I gotta find more about that.
You
yeah,
This is just,
well, we'll take a,
damn
we're
deer,
meant to
you
go
right off. Even
Yeah.
if it's raining, they still eat the deer.
right. I wonder why we're so busy last August.
Yeah, yeah, please you.
Some of the dates
Deer
conflicted with
repellent on the leaves and stuff. Doesn't do a damn bit of good. I swear they work between the leaves to get it
our
on.
budget.
Does my, in
Go
Marion
out
do
there,
finance?
get a
Mary Ann
bunch of
said
them laying
she
on the
would,
floor,
Yeah.
half
but
round, half
there
east.
were some first Thursdays of the month
Oh,
that
when
were
she's on her, yeah,
the second
So
Thursday.
I made a deal with them.
yeah.
Bit of spray 'em, save as many low ones as I can.
That's what the
But
board
other
wants
ones
to
you
do
can't
is the
get at, so
second
I'll just use a
Thursday.
letter.
So
Only me and the wife, how much can I eat? You know?
I've got you for
funny.
the time. If you wanted
Wife
to
tried gardening
yes,
for the first time. And
yes, I'm gonna
went to
email
a hobby
Rich
shop
tomorrow so that I can get him on board
They had all these dead
with Area
looking.
58. I wasn't gonna tape it, and then Michael said you probably should, because we're having Meg and Michael, and they're gonna give us a
I'm
crash
walking
course
along,
on,
and
you know,
they were
right down
brown. I knew they
Yeah.
were brown.
Yeah.
I
reports
just
and
never watered.
You probably should then.
all that stuff that
Man, what
nobody
about
talks
those?
about.
What are you
Doing
doing?
those
right
roads
by
thinking
Beaches?
you're hiding
Oh,
anything.
no, they're already out
They're,
there. He
That's
said,
why
I
want
gotta
it out
figure a way to
there.
South
get it. I'll give you a buck a piece for it.
In essence, of
One of them survives,
transparency. It's really your money.
Wow.
Give him
Well,
20
and
bucks.
people who complain about, you know, well, the town's spending this and that, I mean,
Planted them around, I have this stone wall that
It
faces
was
the
bad
sun.
enough when you get people that are saying, well,
Planted
you
them all
know,
along there.
what happened at the conservation
Cut 'em back a
board?
little, cleaned them.
The minutes are posted and it's on video.
Oh, yeah, right,
Look it
okay.
up, you can watch the whole thing, get some popcorn, kick
So
back.
the box behind it.
They're all blooming, I haven't got one bad.
Exciting.
Incredible.
That's crazy.
Board of Health,
I
no.
can't believe he did that.
why district?
Didn't you, gentlemen? You go down there now.
Oh, the North Carolina Water District's not.
And I think Board of Health should be.
They should be.
I think they all should
Just
be.
north of the
You're saying 40%.
cement place.
Some of those
Yeah.
can be controversial.
Good.
At this point, we will now open the meeting, the hearing for 13A Gate Street. Notice is hereby given in accordance with Mass Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40.
$75.
What's that?
Kim, at ease.
Are we done? We ready?
No. Really.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. Notice hereby given in accordance with Mass Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that the public hearing will be held at 7:15 p.m. on Wednesday, August 15th, 2018, in Meeting Room 1 at the Carver Town Hall, to hear the notice of intent submitted by Renewable Energy Development Partners, LLC, for the proposed construction of a dual-use solar facility. The solar array will generate power for the production of commercial agricultural land within land that is currently unused for agriculture, underlying the solar array. Proposed solar arrays within the 100-foot buffer to wetland resource area bordering vegetated wetland with the construction of a berm within the 65-foot buffer. The project will require variance from the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw for the work within the 65-foot buffer. The project is located at 13A Gate Street, Carver, Mass., map 37, parcel 1-L-R, Carver, Mass. All interested parties are invited to attend. Want to come up and sign in and then,
I only had 2 copies, but in the like huge.
You guys want to send one down there? Share?
I left mine on site.
Nice.
I think I left it in the dirt. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to cozy up.
Did I? Did you save it for me?
You want to share with me, Jim?
You guys haven't seen the site.
I did.
Oh, you did, that's right. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You can look at it.
Mr. Chairman, is this towards the audience or towards you guys?
probably toward the audience, and the cameras will pick it up. That's the other thing. Thanks. A lot of people don't think us about that, and we get flack for it.
So I'll show you.
Ready?
Yes.
Dive in?
Pretty interesting.
Well, so good evening, members of the commission. My name is Hank Ouimet. I'm one of the partners of Renewable Energy Development Partners. We are, my partner Tom Mellahan is here with me tonight. We're a local renewable energy project developer. We're here with Peter Beaton as the landowner. We've worked with Peter on a few projects over the last few years. And we're here tonight to talk about what project we're really excited about, innovative dual-use agricultural and solar project. I'd like to give a little overview of the project, and then I'll let Steve Weah, who's our consultant, and he knows more about what you need to know, and will describe more in detail, specifically the work we plan on doing and and the impacts to the areas of jurisdiction. So, broadly, like I said, we've worked with Peter for a few years now. He brought our attention to this site. It's
People signed it.
excuse me, the site is approximately 180 acres off of Gate Street. Peter's got 30 acres or so, or 20 acres of active cranberry bogs. And to the rear of the site, well east of Gate Street, there's about 13 or 14 acres of land that is, most of it has been mined sand and gravel for Peter's use over the years, and there's a portion of it that he intends to mine some sand and gravel out of. And at the end of that, you'll have, like I said, about 13 acres of relatively low utility land. Way back at the back of his parcel, he doesn't plan on converting that into cranberry bogs because of the cost of doing so. And we talked to him originally about building a traditional solar array on that land. It seemed like a good place for it. And but as we discussed it, and as the new iteration of the Massachusetts Solar Incentive Program kind of congealed, we started thinking more heavily about adopting this innovative dual-use approach, which would allow Peter the continued agricultural use of the land throughout the life of the solar system and beyond, instead of foregoing any agricultural productivity of that land and just kind of converting it to a solar farm. So we are, again, staying at a relatively high level. The state's new incentive program has not yet been released. They have released all of the pertinent regulations and the guidance that would pertain to this project. We have met on several times on a preliminary basis with the Department of Energy Resources and the Department of Agriculture to review our proposed plan, and are following that path in parallel with this. Generally, the difference between a traditional solar project, which I know you folks are well familiar with, and the project we propose, is that our project is a ground mount project that's higher off the ground and further spaced apart to basically allow more sunlight to get to the ground and to accommodate the needs of an active farm in terms of equipment and access. So instead of, I think we had about 3.5 or 3.6 megawatts of capacity initially as a ground-mounted solar. This one is closer to 2.7 megawatts. So it's a 25-30% smaller because of the need to spread the arrays out further. Outside of that, it does look, to the untrained eye, I guess, like a solar project. It's higher off the ground, the panels are tilted more steeply, and the rows are further apart. But for all intents and purposes, the rest of it, the associated electrical interconnection gear, the surrounding fence, the access roads to it, all those things that are germane to a typical solar project are germane to this project. The site that we propose to build this on is an upland site. It is surrounded, not surrounded, but there are wetlands that border the site, especially to the east, on the east side of the site to the north and south, and on the west side of the site to the north. And then Peters Bogs abut the western side of the site immediately to the west. And while I'm saying this, probably Steve should be pointing for the audience's benefit and others what we're talking about.
Let me just flip to the development plan.
Maybe the aerial to start would be a good job. So if you look at the at sheet C1 is an aerial photo showing the existing conditions as they stand. And as I said, the site in question is right in the middle of the graphic there. It's mostly cleared. There's a portion of the project site is bisected by a transmission easement. And here's, for reference, here's Gate Street. Here's, north is up. Here are the active bogs, Peters active bogs. And then the land we're talking about is to the east of the active bogs, and it's this area here, and it's bisected by an Eversource transmission easement. So we've broken our proposed project into a western section and an eastern section geographically because the area of the transmission easement is off limits to development. So there, as I said, the area to the west has been cleared previously and mined for sand and gravel for Peter's use on the bogs. This side has been cleared, about half of it has been cleared, and our intent is to clear the balance of it, and then Peter will be mining some sand and gravel out of that for his future use. And then once that work is done, the area will be essentially limited utility for Peter and agriculturally, which is the reason we've selected it as a site. So our game plan, again, is to, under this concept of dual use, we're going to do the required earthwork, bring in from on-site organic materials, spread those organic materials under the proposed array, install an irrigation system, and then basically construct the array above productive farmland. We're going to essentially create farmland under this array. And then the intent is to grow over the next 20 plus years a variety of agricultural row crops, fruits and vegetables, and potentially occasionally some of the site or all of the site might be converted to hayfield. Full disclosure, we're not farmers, but Peter is, and we've partnered with Peter because he's a farmer and a really trustworthy guy, and we've worked with him before on other projects, and we like the partnership. And this provides Peter with a way to diversify his income on the farm and to keep the farm sustainable and to keep farmland. So that's the big picture concept of what we're intending to do. As I said, there are some wetland areas of concern specific to your jurisdiction to the north and south and east of the east side, and also to the north and south of the west side, and then Peters Bog to the west of the west side. Generally, and I'll let Steve speak to the details, and I know that one of the suggestions at the sidewalk was for us to supplement our filing with a more detailed description of exactly what the work we would do in the jurisdictional areas, and we've done that. Steve has brought a letter and a supplemental plan to describe that. I'll describe it broadly, and that is, within the 100-foot buffer, we're proposing some selective clearing and some road building for access to the site, and then the fence that will surround the array. All that work will be between 65 feet from the resource and 100 feet. And then we are indeed proposing to have some impacts within the 65-foot buffer, specifically the buffer to the bog. And the work that we anticipate there would be the construction, the improvement of the existing bog roads as required with some supplemental gravel to stabilize the roads. B, the construction of an earthen berm on the west side of the array along here,
Yeah.
in anticipation of a planning board requirement for visual screening. Even though there's not a whole lot of visual accessibility to the site from the right-of-way or even from the property lines behind, we fully expect that the planning board will expect some visual screening. The most efficient way to do that is with a vegetated berm. So we have proposed, because the area is already impacted and because the resources, the cranberry bog, we've proposed, we're respectfully asking to construct that berm within that 65-foot buffer. In addition, the electrons from the solar facility have to make their way out to Gate Street, and we plan on doing that by underground conduit, and those conduit runs would follow the existing bog road, which clearly is within the 65-foot buffer to the bog and to the agricultural reservoir to the north. So there's some relatively unavoidable impacts, but given that it's previously disturbed area, we're hoping the board would consider granting a variance. And then the last thing I will say before I turn it over to Steve is, you've heard this before from other solar developers, I'm sure. We have to proceed in parallel along a number of fronts. One of the fronts we're proceeding with at the moment is utility interconnection. We've filed a utility interconnection application months ago. We're near the end of our study, we believe. One of the things that's not clear to us now, and it won't be clear until the utility gives us a definitive answer, is where on the site we will interconnect. We'd like to interconnect where Peter has his existing service, which is right here. There's a pole line that runs right there.
You know that's not right.
But we suspect that they won't let us do that.
Yeah.
So in the plans that we submitted, we showed an interconnection in Peter's frontage at Gate Street. So what I asked Steve to do tonight is to bring an alternate plan, because what we would request is to give the board two plans, one that shows the conduit run on this road, another that shows the conduit run on that road. We're only going to build one of them. We just don't know which one. We'd like to build the one that is most cost efficient and makes most sense for the project based on where the utility tells us to interconnect. So we just can't tell you which one to build now. So just as a matter of expediency, we were hoping to give ourselves options that the board could approve. So with that, I've probably stolen most of Steve's thunder.
All of my thunder, but I have a few formalities. Again, my name is Steve Weah with Weston and Sampson Engineers. We work closely with Hank. He's our client to help develop these sets of plans. And again, just to dispense with some formalities, I do have the green slips for the certified mailing, and we did a certificate of mailing in addition, mostly just in an abundance of caution. And then from our site walk today, I wrote a letter today. So
Thank you.
these are for you.
Okay, thank you.
To go over sort of what we talked about this morning on that site walk. And Hank had mentioned it already. We wanted to make sure that it was abundantly clear that we do absolutely have work within your jurisdiction and within the 65-foot buffer. And we're hoping that that work is explained in this letter. And so there are four basic work elements: construction of the earthen berm, the bog access roadway improvements, a stormwater retention system, because technically there's a few feet of it that are within the 65-foot buffer, and then lastly, that underground electrical duct bank that Hank just explained. And so, again, pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act in Section 9.2 of the town bylaws. We did have filed a notice of intent because the work is in your jurisdiction and within the state's jurisdiction. We paid the fees. It was advertised, I think, in the local paper. The notice to abutters went out twice. And again, Hank mentioned this is a dual purpose. We think it's a good project. It's unique to us. We have developed, I think, upwards of 90 projects in the state with an average size of 2 megawatts. And this is the first agricultural combination project that we've seen, so we're excited about that as well. It is at 13A Gate Street. There are 2 parcels. 37-1L for tax purposes is 130.6 acres, and 3710 is a 44.6 acre, all contiguous, all owned by Peter. 175.2 acres total in parcels, and the array areas, to give an idea of how much area that the panels would take up, are 5.3 acres and 4.86 acres, east and west respectively. So a total of 6.3 acres. Hank had mentioned some clearing. Most of the site is already denuded of vegetation. And the total amount of clearing with any trees, just to be able to balance out the site and grade it for stormwater purposes, is a total of 6.3 acres. And so relatively speaking, it's a fairly small percentage of the total site acreage that the lot consists of. Again, just from a zoning perspective, I know that you're not maybe that concerned about it. There's a height limit of 30 feet. The back edge of the panel is about 15 feet, 15.5 feet, down to a lower edge of 8 feet. And that spacing of 25 feet, which is generally generous from a solar developer's perspective, they love to pack panels in and make it as dense as possible. This is spread out larger than any that I've been involved with, and again, over about 90 projects. And again, that's to accommodate that dual purpose use of having equipment in space so that the plants that they intend to grow there have adequate sunlight. And so it's a neat idea. The fence around it of an 8-foot perimeter fence is really there for security purposes. Some of the work will occur within the 100-foot setback to have that fence, and it's primarily for security reasons, maybe to keep critters out that you don't want munching on the vegetables before they're ready to go to market. And 8 feet, we recognize some deer can leap over that, and we've had experience with
I think
them.
that's a planning board requirement.
Right.
What was it, the height of the fence?
We'll follow at least the minimum of whatever the planning board requires or more.
So again, just to continue, the paperwork and the reports and the plans that we had filed are the WPA Form 3. And we think that there's a project description, there's a stormwater report that analyzes what the pre and post conditions are, and a lot of time and attention was done with that to make sure that it complies with the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook. In terms of defining the drainage areas, both before and after, and making sure that the surface water discharge standards and quality are met, so that there are some stormwater features, again, which are within that 65-foot buffer, primarily settling basins to make sure that we accommodate, I think, a 100-year storm event with the worst-case ground cover that we anticipate after development. So with that, and again, I could go through a little bit more detail, but the construction items that weren't included in the original files with the letter that I just handed to you, I feel it's important to kind of get that on the record because I don't think that you've had time to digest this. But the earthen berm, generally speaking, it's a 2-to-1 slope. The overall length from north to south, even though that it's broken up in a couple of places to allow some movement of stormwater and access, is about 700 feet long in total. And so the width at the base is likely to be on the order of 16 feet so that you can have a 2 to 4 foot crest, which again would accommodate the ability to put some vegetative screening in there if the planning board should require that, so that if it grows up, they have some modicum of a visual barrier, between, I guess, what you might be able to see from Gate Street if you look back. And to give you an idea, I think we talked about this at the meeting this morning. The array area doesn't start for 1,500 feet into Gate Street.
I think it's about 1,200 feet behind the rear lot lines of the streets or on lots on Gate Street.
Right. So with that, the bog access way improvements, again, these are sort of on a as needed. We wanted to be complete in terms of what we wanted to ask in case it's necessary. If it's not necessary, in other words, if we can get all of the construction trucks and delivery vehicles that are necessary to get in there and do the construction and get out without doing any road work, of course, we wouldn't do any. But if there's some areas that are a little bit low-lying, that have mud, we have erosion and sediment control plans that are in there to make sure that any of that sediment doesn't get into the resource area and doesn't leave the site. And that's sort of on an as-needed basis. If it becomes too wet, we've had sites where they had to simply stop working. But they're not likely to do any improvements if it's not necessary. And those roads have been there for a long time already, and they're fairly stable as we drove on them today, and you saw that. Again, the other thing, what the planning board will likely require that we've run into before is fire department access to make sure that they know that they can get whatever vehicles. We've looked at the largest turning radius and looked at those things so that we make sure that the road is wide enough and the turns are not too sharp so that they can get their vehicles in, turn around, and get off the site if they need to. There's also some wording and verbiage usually about having the gated access controlled with a Knox box so that they don't need to get a key and fumble for it. They know the code, they can get in and out. And there'll be 2 sets of gates, both on the north and south side of both arrays, so that the owner and the fire department would have access to that.
We just to be clear, we've already had a pre-filing meeting with the assistant chief and have gone over these requirements, and they use bolt cutters. So
When in doubt, cut it out, right? Again, so we described a little bit about the stormwater retention system. There are 5 individual basins within this after all of the grading has been done and stabilized. And so I won't go into the details of that other than to say that there's only one small area on the south side of the berm in what is known as post-development area E, the last one, that really comes within about 10 or 15 feet of the 65-foot setback. And so where that touches it, that's where we want to point out that we're asking for permission and a variance there to do that work. And then lastly, the underground electric duct bank, which I think that Hank described quite well, is we just want to have both routes approved, knowing that we're only going to put it in one, and whichever one is closer.
On the underground, would you be trenching right down the center of the existing road?
yes, sir.
Okay.
In fact, Peter has, there's electric service along this road currently. And it's our understanding that there may be sufficient capacity or an additional buried conduit that we could use. We're not sure, we haven't investigated the whole length yet. We want it to be, the worst case would be we'd be trenching to install a new conduit. The best case would be there's an active conduit that we can use and we would use the conduit.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure it was in the center, not along the
Yes, sir, it would be in the
edge.
center.
Okay.
There's no other underground utilities in that northern road.
Well, it's less intrusive to the bogs themselves and the wetlands going down the center. Okay.
Tim, any questions?
Just quickly, gentlemen, what you've added here is what we talked about this morning. You are going to attach this as paperwork to the NOI.
That's correct.
You're going to have to, because Lakeville's going to want to see it. You know,
Right.
they have a lot of questions. Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, we make that language, and it's written in there that this is an addendum to that
Yeah.
NOI that was filed.
I saw
And-
the addendum part, but
Right.
on the NOI that you're addressing to us, it should refer to the addendum. Okay, so we know there is an addendum.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
I do. So I tried to tie the original filing into, in the header of the letter so that these two things are tied together.
I understand what you're saying, sir.
Right.
What I'm getting at is that if Lakeville doesn't know there's an addendum, then they're gonna stop there. And if we don't know there's an addendum in coming years, we're not gonna be here forever, so I hope not.
What's the best way to accomplish that? Was that
Well,
to,
I would, on the NOI, I would just install at this point, please refer to addendum 1. So that we know there is a follow-up and people will be able to see this. Never mind stapling it to it, but in the future, like especially when you get to Lake, when it gets to Lakeville, they get addendum. Where the hell's the addendum?
Right.
So
You
can
can
we,
just put it on, you know,
It should
on
be
like
right
on the second
attached to
page
it,
of
Yeah,
the
you put it on the
NOI
back side
form.
and just see, refer to addendum 1.
can we work with Brooke to make sure we get that
Yeah.
paperwork right? So
Yeah.
it's a good point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
we
So I
wanna
think
make
we should
sure-
just revise that
'Cause
page
I
maybe.
want to be able to have a track.
Yeah, so
Right.
maybe under the, where it says project description, you could just say see addendum 1 to the NOI or something.
Right, and so also, Brooke, I think that we talked a little bit about this. The order of conditions is a great place to identify
Yeah.
and document the chronology
Yeah,
of this.
so we can put that into one of the conditions and reference that with the plans, yeah.
As long as it's on there, so they have
Yeah.
a track on it.
Right.
Yeah,
That's good.
And we did produce one more figure to supplement this. It's 9A that shows the alternate route with the location proximal to the wetlands resource.
okay.
And then in that order of conditions,
Yeah.
I think, Brooke, you had also mentioned that if we brought you a check, you would do the registry, and
Yep.
I think when it gets recorded, I did double check as soon as I got back to the office. DEP acknowledged receipt of it, it's on their website.
okay, they just
but they
didn't
just
give it
haven't
out.
issued that file number
Okay.
yet. They received it on the 8th,
Yeah.
just about a week ago. And then they have to wait for our checks to clear
Yeah.
before they issue that file
Yeah.
number to attach it to.
Okay.
So that probably will happen by the next meeting. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
perfect.
last thing I wanted to ask, and I just want to make sure that the abutters realize this, that you're not going to be cutting any trees toward the abutting area.
There's
well,
no-
There's a plan sheet that shows the limits of clearing.
Let's stay on this, just because folks can tell the aerial photo. So the clearing that we propose is on the north side,
I understand
the
that.
eastern array. I mean, there are, Weston's property is back behind us. There are other properties up here. There's no property proximate to that, that's for
Okay.
sure. And there's some additional clearing up here.
Well,
to
if you
the-
clear any more into that, you have so many BVWs above there that you can't go.
That's right, that's
Right.
right. We're limited by, and the
Okay.
clearing plan shows that.
Yeah.
Right.
Only up to the 65-foot setback
Yeah.
is the limit that
Works
we
for me.
propose.
Right.
Not sure why.
I just want to make sure the neighbors knew they were, you're not going to end up in their backyard.
Maybe.
Well, we've,
Those are the people on Gate Street. There are others up here.
one of the benefits of the site is that it is relatively remote, or it's very remote and well screened.
Good now. Alan, any other questions?
I do, I have a couple quick questions. I'd actually like to reserve any comments that I personally have until we're done with the abutters. But you're gonna take out the sand and harvest that sand from that bog area, and obviously you can't grow tomatoes in sand, so you're gonna bring in what?
So Peter has plans to, there's some former bog areas that have organic sediments, and he was planning to remove those sediments over time in any event to restore the functionality of it, serving as an ag reservoir at the moment. So we've had those sediments tested and sent out to the UMaine Ag Lab, where our intent is to remove those sediments from on-site and transport them to the proposed site and spread them as an organic planting base.
So you're saying demographically they're gonna stay on site?
It's
Do
on-site.
you anticipate bringing any outside materials in that, I'm asking this question only because if we're gonna bring in material from, I don't know, pick a town, and it's not compatible with this wetland area that it's gonna obviously leach into, somewhere along the line.
I
So
understand.
that was my only comment.
I think we described it in the description, but the plan is, sir, to not import materials because Peter has so much material on site,
That's fine.
both subsurface, we'll do a lot of regrading to make a properly graded planting base. But again, we've worked with this is more germane to our dual use part in our approvals with the state, but we've been working with a professional agronomist for several months now, and she's been guiding us as to the suitability of those sediments. We've had them tested. Peter excavated a bunch and we had them dried out. We took a bunch of samples. There's plenty of that material there. We don't anticipate importing materials.
That's my only comment until we hear about the abutters.
JP, anything? Okay. Now, any of the abutters who are present, do they have questions?
Any butters need to talk?
I think those are the only two.
Okay.
The lady left.
Right?
I don't know what happened to the other woman.
She,
The other butter left.
Didn't feel she had to say
That's
it.
what it seemed like.
so, okay.
No, no questions?
You guys are good?
Just one about the tie-in.
Identify himself, no?
That's gonna go through, what, 5 Gate Street?
I don't know,
That's where the line goes.
He needs to sign.
that's where we would, that's a utility, that's a utility decision.
Right, what kind of equipment would be located, where it comes out of the ground and up?
So the equipment, the interconnection equipment would be, if the interconnection is where the existing interconnection would be, it would be 3 new poles. And there'd be electrical equipment. One of the poles would have no equipment on it, and the other 2 would have basically pole-mounted metering and a recloser. So electrical equipment that would hang from the poles. And then the rest of the equipment, electrical equipment would be here. So transformers would be here. This would all be medium voltage to this point, and then we would interconnect to the utilities medium voltage circuit. And that would happen either here or here. So 3 new poles, 3 new utility required poles with some pole-supported electrical gear.
So the interconnection would be at the end of that central road there, that intersection?
Peter has frontage, there's an existing gated access road there, so it would be down,
33.
That's one of the plans. The other one was
He's 26.
right, it would be right down here, right where there's a pole with a set of transformers on it.
Okay.
Right now, it would be right next to that.
Okay, that was my questions.
Sir, I'd like to have you sign in, please, since you had.
So we have it for the
Sir.
record.
Silent citizens.
Who's this guy? Does he know his name? What's this guy's name? This guy's name, his name?
He did not.
Yeah.
So,
Are you Mr. Ridlon? Are you at 5 Gate?
No, I'm at 3. I didn't get the letter that was sent out, the certified one.
You didn't get a letter? A certified letter?
We got the notice, I didn't get the certified letter though.
Yeah, it'll be the same notice.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's the same thing?
it is. We just sent it 2 different ways.
Oh, and it's just this?
Mr.
Yeah.
Burlow?
Just the,
Yes,
oh, okay, just the meeting?
yes.
Oh, okay.
so, nobody has any other questions? Shall we,
What was it?
yeah, we could move to close the hearing?
Well, were we gonna close it, or were we gonna continue it,
Continue, that's right, yeah.
right? I think we were gonna continue it because,
Right, post the.
We don't have the
planning board-
DEP
we're gonna
number.
continue
We
it?
don't have a DEP number.
We don't have a DEP
I mean, we
number.
can,
We
I
were
mean,
going to,
You can't prove you don't have a DEP number.
well, we could close it, and then, but we just can't issue the order until we get the file number.
Right, yeah.
So in other words, if there's no other
Yeah.
issues,
I'd like to see this addendum put on and the paperwork done in order and
Yep, I
stuff
can
like
add all
that.
that.
And why don't we just continue this, Mr. Chairman?
That would be okay with me. Would that be okay with you guys? It's-
I'd prefer, obviously, to
Close.
close it and make a condition or whatever, but I would defer to your judgment.
Well, we're closing it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, but we do want to get the DEP number recorded with the, really, when we close, it should include that, so
It should include, it really should.
why don't we,
Continue?
we'll continue. So move to continue.
I'll make a motion, we continue the hearing for 13A Gate Street.
And a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to continue this hearing on 13A Gate Street. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, it's 3-1 and 4-1 to continue, so.
4-1 to continue.
and so, I mean, you probably wouldn't have to come to the, they wouldn't have to come to the next
No,
hearing.
no, we just need to get all the...
You just wanna
the
make sure
numbers
they get
need-
the number.
The numbers need
As
to
long as
be
nothing-
here,
And we
the
add the
DEP
conditions, so
number.
you wouldn't even have to come.
Yeah.
So
And
can you-
between
Brooke-
now and the next hearing date, Brooke, we would work on the language of
Yep.
the order of
And-
conditions?
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you could email us just with specifically what we need to do so that we do it
Yep.
prior to your meeting.
okay.
I think that's really all. We need to have a DEP number, and I like Tim's idea
Yeah,
about
we'll
making
add
sure
that
that
onto the
this is,
form, yep.
Okay.
just so it doesn't fall through the cracks, and then we're running back looking at videotape to say, did that really happen? Oh, yeah, it did.
Right.
And we can make it part of the order of
We can
conditions
make
as
it
well.
part of the
Right,
order
yeah.
of conditions.
Go, hit it both, go both
Yeah.
directions.
So for the electrical thing, you know, you have the two alternatives. So in the order of conditions, would we like include both plans? And that way we'd, yeah, so it really wouldn't matter which road it was, right? Okay. So just include both plans and then
Yeah,
whatever one you.
it should reference the date of the new letter today, and the
Yeah.
plan, the engineer stamped it today showing
Yeah.
that alternate
Okay.
route. And we'll marry those two together in the order of condition
Yeah.
language.
Yeah,
And while this is not a conservation question, I have just a question because I was interested in the battery storage. Are you thinking about eventually doing something like that where you're already on the high tension lines?
Sir, we haven't explored that. We've explored battery storage with some industrial customers, and it's our position that it's not quite there yet.
Ready, yeah.
We know that there are some folks looking into it from a transmission
Right.
level, but we haven't explored that.
I'm asking because it's.
Yeah, we're right there.
It seems to cry out, if that was gonna be an alternative, this seems to cry out for it because you're right on the high tension
I
line.
think one of the limiting factors is that our project frankly is not big enough.
Yeah, so, yeah,
A
smaller.
transmission level project with battery storage probably wants to be twice that size or larger.
There is a projected battery storage project in Carver near where the really big high-tension lines intersect, about halfway up to North Carver. So, but it's all still in the works.
Yeah, where,
I understand this statewide, there's a move to do this all through the electrical system.
I believe so, and I think it would be a benefit to the grid. It's just, we let someone else figure that out, and then we'll be second.
Understand. Okay, so we're going to continue until the first meeting in September, which would be,
which would be actually September 19th,
okay,
as a Labor Day.
right.
September 19th?
Yeah.
You're meeting with planning the 25th, is that what you said?
Our target date is to make the filing deadline for the planning board's September 25th meeting, so that would work for
Okay.
us, because I know they would like.
Yeah, as long as we're not holding you up from that standpoint.
Thank you.
We don't have any filing. Labor Day week, and so with all the ads and stuff, we just, we have no filing.
Okay, so do we have any other business?
So the 19th is
September 9th?
motion,
Yep.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you, folks.
welcome.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a move to adjourn, we have a second.
I'll second that.
It's moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously.